I rather have a resident terminate early and have their apartment be perfect rather than have somebody stay for the whole entire 12 months and have to redo their entire apartment because the housekeeping was so bad. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of The Adventures of a Real Estate Investor. I'm Susie.
And I'm Michael, and we're excited you joined us for this adventure.
So today we are going to talk about part 4 and the final part of the asset management workshop that I went to. Today is all about like leasing, lease audit, leases. I mean, it's right that we need all these things in order to have accountability for residents. So I think it's pretty important to talk about.
Absolutely. So this is the 4th part in the 4-part series. If you haven't already, please go back and listen to parts 1 through 3. Some really great knowledge in there. And then next week's episode will be an interview with the guy who actually set up the whole workshop that we discussed over the past 4 episodes. Yeah.
Super excited. So jump into, I guess I can just kind of explain like a property manager versus a leasing agent. So a leasing agent would be the individual who is literally doing all things like appointments, showings, follow up with the residents so that like all things new, right? And then the property manager would work with all of the residents like retention with the maintenance man or woman. So those are the difference between the two. And it can vary on if you have both. Like it could be like an ebb and flow where a leasing agent helps with a property when needed, or if there's a big lease up that occurs. On most of our like 100-ish unit properties, we do not have a leasing agent, which is kind of like for some property managers, they can totally handle it and others can't. So it's kind of like it's a good indicator, right? On like the property manager, their skill set and all things in between.
Absolutely. And as we mentioned before as well, is like what we ask of the property managers is a lot, right? Like as Susie mentioned, leasing manager just focuses on leasing, right? Focuses on callbacks, showings, continuous follow-up, right? And everything like that. While the property manager has to focus on all that. If you don't have a leasing agent at the property, they have to focus on all that plus all their other duties, right? And so when a property is stabilized, it can be pretty straightforward. However, if you have like a lot of leases coming due or, a lot of notice of vacates coming up, you might want to leverage a leasing agent to kind of come in and step in and help out the on-site manager. And like, luckily for us, we have a large amount of properties in one area. So we have a leasing agent, a floating leasing agent that kind of goes around and helps at the properties when needed, which is really great. So leverage those economies of scale.
In all times, the leasing agent should probably have like really great sales skills, right? Like we shouldn't just be putting someone who is shy in the leasing agent position because like they are selling the community and the property. So they need to be very like confident, know everything about the property, like have reasons to be able to like rebuttal anything like a resident says, not in like a bad way, just like, what would you do if this happened? Like that, this leasing agent has to be able to like be on their toes. Like even an example of this is that we have a business center at most of our properties. And I was at a property 2 weeks ago, maybe 3. And they got a call. I listened to everything the leasing agent said. In 2 instances, there was that one. And I gave her feedback on that. But then I said, if this were to happen in person, like you should encourage them to go use the business center computer and just have the application up and ready to go so that they aren't leaving and having to do it when they have more time. Like we know they have time right now. You especially know if they're not in a hurry, right? Because they would convey that. You'd be able to tell if they were in a hurry or not. But to be able to have that application just like right there and ready to go for them to fill out is huge.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And back up a little bit too, all of our application stuff is online. So we don't do any hard copy stuff or anything like that. And so that's why it's imperative to get them on the computer and filling out the application. And sometimes we even offer like, some kind of application fee discount or maybe a free application depending on what kind of rent specials we have, concessions we have going on for that specific month. So like, filling out an application right then and not having to pay an application fee is huge, right?
Totally. So, that's actually a great idea. I feel like we should tell all of them that like, hey, if you can get the on-site manager to have them fill it out real time, they can have their application fee waived. Yeah, that was good. Yeah. But so what happens what happens if you don't have a leasing agent though? So like one thing that was talked about at the asset management workshop is like, do we use automated leasing agents? A lot of times it'll be set up through your property management software. And so like I found out that Lisa, which is somebody that some of our property use, and I say somebody, but that's just the technology's names, is offered through Appfolio. But like different softwares offer different automated leasing agents.
Yeah. And so to talk about what Lisa does is that Lisa is this automated figure. Lisa, the leasing agent, basically what she does is say you have a call coming in and the call can't be picked up by the on-site manager. She's doing something else, or the leasing agent, whatever, doing something else busy, showing a unit or something like that. If that call comes in and basically it shoots them a text afterwards and says, hey, what kind of apartment are you looking for? And they can answer a question, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, whatever. And it's like, oh, we have one available. Would you like to come see it? And they're like, oh, sure. And then it's like texting a person, but it's actually just an automated feature. And they can basically set up appointments then looking at the on-site manager's calendar for on-site walks and things like that, which is pretty cool.
The biggest thing with like any software, right? Like you have to make sure it's fed the correct information. And so if that's updating it with like what type of apartment styles are currently available, what the rents are, right? All of that is important because if you don't update it and it's giving prospects like incorrect information, then that's just on you. So it's something to look into.
Yeah. And luckily, I mean, because Lisa is integrated with Tapfolio, it pulls the information in there and we usually make sure that our on-site manager and our regionals make sure that all that information is correct in there. And then also making sure that the on-site manager's calendar is synced properly with appointments and stuff like that so that Lisa can make the appointments for showings without having any overlap or any conflicts.
Totally. The second thing that was kind of brought up was like a lease audit. So there are lots of times where there is like vacancy, right? I mean, that's just a known thing. But somebody asked was, is anyone looking at like the leases of their best residents and just looking at where they work and then trying to go to that workplace, get with their HR or whomever to say like, hey, we'd like to add you as a preferred employer. Like, is that something you'd be interested in? Yes, all people are different, right? So like, although they work at a great place, they still could not be a great resident, right? But like, if you do see that trend, that's kind of like an easy way to be like, okay, if I'm going to go around and ask different companies to add me as a preferred housing list, like who could that be? And that's like one really easy way to find out or just get ideas in general.
Much to add to that. You cool. Everything there that I would like to cover.
Another way to kind of like say you are doing like a lease up phase. I guess this isn't another way. This is just another suggestion. But like during a lease up phase, this is something we're doing because we had a fire and the building is now rebuilt and ready, is that we're doing like an open house and like you encourage a lot of residents to go there at one time. I know we've talked about this, I think in the previous episode about having a dedicated hour or two every week to showing how apartments, and then that way they experience FOMO. But this open house, you can put it on social media, you can put it on the newspaper, you could put it on the radio, and that could be an easy way to get a lot of people at your property at once to do a lease up when you have a lot of units, right? This isn't creating FOMO because you still have a lot of units. You just want to get a lot of people there, and that's a good way to get a lot of people there.
Yeah, I love that idea. We're playing with multiple different options too. One option I know we use at one of our properties too. I know we're talking about lease ups and stuff like that, but a Facebook boost at one of our properties, like $12 to boost an ad, and we got 47 leads. It's the cheapest lead generation source out there, right? Because a lot of these other marketing tools, such as like rent.com, Zillow, and things like that, they can end up costing you $400 or $500 a month. You can run a lot of Facebook boosts in that, for $400 or $500 a month, basically is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. So that would be a great return. And you never know. You never know who you're going to get from Facebook. I mean, you never know who you're going to get from any of the platforms. So it is quite interesting, right? Because even for like Michael and I's like apartment searching journey, I don't know, Michael, you found Allure, but how'd you find where we live?
Oh, I looked kind of where I thought was the best place to live in Dayton, as far as like to work, to downtown, to gym, to golf course, things like that. And then that's how I found this location.
Okay. Yeah. So I mean, like some people are strategic about it, some people are not. So it really just all depends. So another, I guess, topic that I want to bring up within the lease is what kind of clauses are we having? Do you include a housekeeping clause? Do you include like a no notice clause? Like if you can't get a hold of the resident, like how long until you can go into the apartment to see if it's finally a skip? Because when stuff sits in an apartment for a while, it is not
Nasty.
good. And that's both of those things combined, right? Housekeeping versus even somebody who's probably getting ready to skip is like, do you have protections in place to be able to get the resident out sooner than when their 12 months is? Because I mean, more often than not, right? Like a hoarder is not going to get rid of their stuff. Even when you say that they have a housekeeping issue, that's unfortunately just not in their brain. And not to like say anything bad, but like there is a ripple to what can happen to that apartment when there's too much stuff in it. So just like certain clauses of like, how can you really keep yourself protected? Yes, there's like the early termination fee and all of that, but really, I rather have a resident terminate early and have their apartment be perfect. Like I don't have to do anything. Kind of like when Michael and I move out of this place, somebody will be able to move into our apartment right away, rather than have somebody stay for the whole entire 12 months and have to redo their entire apartment because the housekeeping was so bad. So it's like just thinking of it that way, like how are we really trying to capture other income, but like what is the best way to also not have to spend all this extra income at the end?
Yeah, and having a housekeeping clause in your leases ensures that. So for us, we do quarterly preventative maintenance. Basically, we go in, check for leaks, check for housekeeping things, check for pests, things like that, other things that might need attention, right? And we do that quarterly across all of our properties. But having the housekeeping clause, we can go in there and say, hey, unit 101, you have 10 days to fix this issue, right? So say they're like really dirty or whatever, it's causing bugs and things like that. Hey, clean up, basically. And if they don't do that, within that allotted amount of time, that we can give them a lease violation, then at the beginning give them another lease violation, and then at that point I think we can terminate and get them out because the lease allows us to do so. And so we can get them out before they cause any more issues, because we don't want that dirty person living in there, because then it causes a ripple in the units that are around that specific unit.
So that's all that we have for leases. I know that this episode was shorter than our other ones. I know like in our previous 3, we kind of chatted about renewals, ways to influence your staff. So I mean, also has to do with leases. But what this one is like, hey, we wanted to talk about all things before so that you can have like a great situation for all prospects, like before that they move in, right? So like it is super important to, like if you don't have a leasing agent, to have an automated one just to capture all of the missed calls, right? Like that's the biggest reason to do that. Just doing a lease audit if you need some creative ways or ideas to find, right, future residents. Just check out where the best ones, like where your best residents work, and try to get with that HR department to be like a housing of choice. However you want to word it. I'm not 100% sure what it's called. And then last but not least, like just to include, like a housekeeping clause, just certain clauses to be able to protect you and the property, right, for when it is time to move out, because those clauses that are missing are the ones that we are probably the most expensive for us. I mean, all of these are expensive, right? Like if your property manager is missing phone calls, that's expensive. If they are going to employers where like you're bringing in bad residents, you're also losing out on money. So all of this is like, hey, how can we, be in a position where we're being proactive instead of reactive?
Exactly. Yeah, because that's always the point with everything with asset management. You always want to be proactive. You never want to be reactive. So thank you so much for tuning in. We hope we were able to provide you with some great information over the last 4 episodes here. And we're looking forward to next week's episode, where we have an interview with the gentleman who set up this asset management workshop. So it's going to be a really great episode. So thank you all for listening, and tune in. Don't forget to tune in next week. So until next time, explore more, adventure awaits.